Hello, and thank you for watching this September 2016 Ag Weather Update brought to you by Northwest Farm Credit Services. My name is Eric Snodgrass, and I'm a Senior Atmospheric Scientist and co-founder of Agrible Incorporated, and I serve as the Director for Undergraduate Studies in Atmospheric Science at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. Now, as we dive into September, let's take a quick look back at the weather for August. This map shows the temperature anomalies, which are differences from normal, for the month of August. In general, it was a warmer than average month for the Pacific Northwest, with the exception of eastern Montana. Now, the jet stream was set up in a pattern that favored a ridge over the western United States. Ridges are found when the flow of the jet stream bulges north, like this, while troughs are found where it dips to the south. So this bulge in the jet stream for August was forced by an even bigger ridge over the Bering Sea near Alaska. Now, ridges are caused by a northward progression of warm air, while troughs are characterized by a southward progression of cooler air. I want to stress to you the importance of watching features like this, since the position of the jet stream will be an excellent indicator of the weather conditions this fall and winter. More on that in just a few minutes. This figure summarizes the 2016 growing season very well. It shows the April through July temperature anomalies, again, differences from normal, for each year starting in 1895 and going through 2016. April through July in 2016 ranks as the third warmest April through July time period on record for the northwestern United States. While this may seem alarming for agriculture, we have to remember that the winter of 2015 and spring of 2016 were marked by a strong El Niño event that helped bring the Pacific Northwest out of serious drought, and it also helped keep temperatures quite warm. Here we can see how last winter and this spring's wet season panned out for the United States. Clearly, parts of the Northwest, which were in deep drought last year, made significant recovery as rainfall was much above average and snowfall amounts returned to average in the mountains. What is the end result of all of this? Well, with adequate water for irrigation plus great dryland rainfall, the above average temperatures were actually ideal for accumulating growing degree days early and often. Just as an example, let's examine one region to see how this weather scenario played out. Highlighted on this map is the Columbia Basin, and this inlaid figure shows both how precipitation and growing degree days have been accumulating since the beginning of the year. The solid blue line represents the average accumulation of rainfall, while the solid red line shows the average accumulation of growing degree days. Rainfall was right on target for most of the year and really jumped ahead of normal in May, and has stayed there ever since. Growing degree days made a big move early with the spring warmth and never really slowed down. Pasco is currently about 400 growing degree days ahead of average. This type of weather is nearly ideal for the incredible variety of crops grown in the Northwest, and most are 2 to 3 weeks ahead of normal because of these weather patterns. So let's walk through a few different sectors of ag in the Northwest and see how weather has played a role. As the wheat harvest is underway and begins to wrap up, the Palouse is expecting a bumper crop. This region is 2 to 3 weeks ahead given the early season warmth, and about the only concern is over the falling numbers now that the grain is being milled. Early season temperature fluctuations are known to impact the falling numbers, so let's take a look at how mid-May through mid-June temperature and precipitation played out. In late May, the high-low temperature variance was pretty small and well within the normal range. But by the start of June, there were several days in a row where the daily temperature range topped 30 and even 40 degrees. So given these numbers, there may be some small issue with dough quality, just something to be on the lookout for. Now in Montana, yields for wheat and small grains look great in the northern regions, but drier conditions in the southern part of the state will likely lower yields. The current drought monitor shows how both the southern part of the state and the mountains in the west are in the first few stages of drought. Moving on to tree fruit, this year's cherry harvest was characterized by an early flash bloom due to the very warm start to the growing season. While this is reducing the overall quantity of the fruit size is very large and the quality is excellent. As the cherry harvest is nearly done here at the beginning of September, there is concern over rainfall causing splits in the cherries. This map shows the total accumulated rainfall for the first 10 days of September. A big shift in the flow of the jet stream is forecast, and that has the potential to introduce some rainfall into the region, especially near the Dalles and the Hood River regions. Unlike most of August, the ridge that was over the Bering Sea pushes east, forcing a trough over the western United States for the start of September. This animation shows the flow of the winds in the jet stream for the first week of September. That trough will not only cool the region down, but introduce the chance for rain. As we near the start of the rainy season in the Pacific Northwest, we need to watch the jet stream very closely as it will control the weather in the coming months. Now this animation shows the temperature changes every 6 hours through September 10th. We can clearly see the cool down in temperatures, but there is no threat at this point of a freezing temperature in the low country where there's intensive agriculture. All of the below freezing temperatures that you're seeing here are at higher elevation. This is good as the apple crop, just like cherries, is expected to be large due to the large fruit size. Any cold snap during harvest can impact fruit tissue and decrease its quality as well as reduce its storability. Another thing that can impact the quality of the apple harvest are too many hot days in the upper 90s and lower 100s earlier in the season. Well, this graph shows how temperatures near Yakima fluctuated this summer from May through August. The dashed line runs right at 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Notice how very few days hit 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and if they did, they were always followed by a cool down in the following days. Long duration heat events can compromise fruit quality, but this year's crop looks great from a weather perspective. Looking now at wines and vineyards, the moderate temperatures that lack sustained heat this season along the I-5 corridor in the Willamette Valley, south and south-central Washington near Walla Walla, and near Nampa in Idaho is leading toward both high-yielding and high-quality grape harvests for this year. Turning our attention to row crops, this graph shows the potato yields for Idaho from 1948 to 2015. The early accumulation of growing degree days we've been discussing has got this year set up for big yields. The crop is about 2 weeks ahead of normal, and unlike last year, growing conditions were much less stressed. We are anticipating great yields in Idaho this year, and the Northwest Farm Credit Services have been hearing reports that the yields near Moses Lake in Washington might be the best ever. But the only concern we have heard in terms of the quality of the potato crop has been some reports of zebra chip disease. One factor in this disease is excessive heat. Here again we're looking at a graph showing weather conditions from May through August, this time though for Idaho Falls. While there is a lot of ongoing research into this disease and how it is spread, warm, dry conditions may be ideal for insect pressures on the potato crop, which may be a factor in transmitting the disease. While it's normally very dry for this time of year, May through August, there were several days of above average temperatures. Now, I don't want to alarm anyone though, as the reports of this disease are common this time of year, and we've not heard of anything widespread. So in summary, we are expecting a great potato crop across the Pacific Northwest in terms of quality and yield. Yet another consequence of this favorable growing season, in terms of weather and the quick accumulation of growing degree days, are reports of a large percentage of the onion crop being jumbo and colossal in size from fields in the Columbia Basin. All that I have to say is that I'm glad that the favorable weather conditions will make this a reality for me this fall. Okay, back to the weather. I want to make a quick note that numerous severe storms this summer in Montana have included quite a bit of hail. This map is from the Storm Prediction Center and shows where hail has been reported so far this year across the United States. And the Northwest Farm Credit Services have been receiving reports of hail damage in Montana that have ruined some of the sugar beet crop that's grown there. Hail from storms like this one can destroy the sugar beet foliage and ruin the crop. This is a picture of one of the storms that was taken by a colleague of mine named Jeff Frame, who's a professor here at the University of Illinois with me. Storms like these can produce large quantities of hail very quickly, and that's what many of them did in 2016, which gave us a lot of those reports. Finally, let's check in on hay. With the fourth cutting getting wrapped up now, about the only threat to this cut is the fact that cooler and potentially wetter weather is coming for the first 10 days of September. And as this cut lays in its windrows, precipitation could cause some problems with its quality. Here again is the precipitation forecast through September 10th. Showers will arrive soon for some regions, so keep a very close eye on the radar in the coming days. So as we wrap up this video, let's take a look at the driving factors for this coming fall and winter weather. Last year's powerful El Nino has crashed back toward neutral conditions, and hints of a developing La Nina are seen in this map of sea surface temperature anomalies. In the Pacific Northwest, we must turn our attention toward the Pacific Ocean for our winter forecasts, as it controls nearly all of the weather that we receive. Here are the few things I am watching. First, the sea surface temperatures south of Alaska are still anomalously warm. While this has often been referred to as the blob, we in the meteorological community call this the positive phase of the Pacific Decadal Oscillation. Secondly, we are forecasting a weak La Nina to develop this winter, and that will have a big impact on temperatures and precipitation throughout the region. Typically, a moderate to strong La Nina will produce a large ridge in the jet stream south of Alaska, which means cooler and wetter winter conditions, as shown in this graphic from NOAA. However, this year's La Nina is not forecast to be strong. A strong La Nina would dip into this territory on my graph, which shows the strength of the multivariable El Niño index. Given this forecast of a weak La Nina and the persistence of the positive phase of the PDO, that warm blob, what should we be expecting for this winter? The research would suggest that the winter precipitation should be near average to slightly above average given the state of things in the Pacific Ocean. This particular graph from a paper that was published in the journal Nature shows us that slight wet anomaly across the Pacific Northwest. Now, our long-range statistical weather forecast system suggests that winter should be wetter than average along the coast, with maybe the potential for some drier conditions in the interior states in the Pacific Northwest. But at this stage, we're not seeing major drought conditions where you're kind of seeing those drier colors. In terms of temperatures, though, we are seeing this cool bias for this winter, really for most regions in the Pacific Northwest. Additionally, here is the IRI multi-model forecast for winter temperatures in the United States. This forecast is very similar to the maps I just showed, with near average temperatures in the Pacific Northwest this winter. In terms of precipitation, the IRI also agrees with the potential wetter than average pattern for the Pacific Northwest. Finally, we can also look at analog years, which are those that look similar to this year, and blend them all together into a composite map like the one that you see here. We see a similar trend in temperatures, although this forecasting technique is calling for much warmer conditions in southern Oregon, and really warm conditions again in California. And finally, in terms of precipitation, wetter than average conditions seem to be a theme for all three forecasting methods. Well, as we approach this winter, we'll be updating this forecast each month with our latest guidance and then be providing you in-season forecasts with each monthly update. We at the Northwest Farm Credit Services will keep you up to date with the best weather forecast information so that you can effectively plan your operations. Thank you for your attention, and we hope you look forward to our next weather video update. Thank you.